I will nominate Sue Tavalero.
Second it.
Is there any other nominations before I close? Nominations are now closed. All in favor of Sue? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So do we trade right now, or do I have to wait? Huh? The trade?
And then I do the,
Yes, you have to open nominations.
oh,
for
and
Mayor
I'm
Pro
so
Tem.
set up right here, all right?
Well, you can do it from there. Do it from there. We'll switch later.
That's easier.
No, it just says,
No,
she doesn't want to be known as Ken Palfini
no,
Mayor.
not today.
Not today, tomorrow. I'll just do this. I'm absent.
So we are accepting nominations for vice chair,
Mayor Pro Tem, yeah.
for Mayor Pro Tem.
I will nominate Stacy Green.
Any other nominations? Oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
You're gonna have to forgive me.
No, please. Any other nominations?
None?
None? So Stacy Green has been nominated as Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Done.
Okay, done.
New officers. You
So-
were witnesses, okay, out there?
We'll stay here till next month, right? In our spots, because Stacy's going to have to move and,
You can if I guess you'd like. I just wanted to get out of center stage. Yeah, make
Yeah.
a new name placard. Put those on order, Sandy, would you?
Let's get a piece of tape.
okay. So, moving on. We will now go to the non-agenda public comment. This is a time for, do they have to swear me in?
Supposed to.
Is there something? Oh, okay, so we'll do that next month? Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, thanks.
I give you the gavel.
Yeah.
Our
I might have to reach for it. So this is the time for any of the public that is not on the agenda to speak? If anybody? And state your name, address.
Sure. My name is Richard Dingus, and I'm with the Weed Chamber of Commerce, and that's 35 Main Street in Weed. And I just wanted to thank the council and thank city staff for helping us light the tree and doing the tree lighting that we had for the old-fashioned Christmas, and it was really a great event. We had about 150 kids show up. I know most of you were probably there. It was really a lot of fun. I was sicker than a dog, and I apologize, but it was still a lot of fun, and Santa Claus was great. And we were one of the few that stood out in the rain to light the Christmas tree, and we had a few city staff that were there also, which was great. But I do want to really thank the city for helping us do that, and they decorated it graciously. They did a really good job of doing it, and working with Craig was wonderful. And I know that we were kind of in a disarray at first, but it all came together and turned out pretty good. So next year, I think it's even going to be better. So
Book
thank you
that
so
hall
much.
today for next year.
That's it. We still got to start planning now. So
Well, you better book the hall
we should do that right now.
should
yes.
do that
I'll do that
tomorrow.
right after the meeting.
Friday. You can call him tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you
Put
so much.
marshmallows on your list, though.
It is now. Yes, thank you. Thank
There
you.
weren't enough. There weren't any at all.
There weren't any at all.
No, it was a really nice event. It was great having the community center that we could go to afterwards. Name and address?
Elizabeth Tabor, now 218 and 242 Main Street. I came tonight to ask if after the first of the year, get through the holiday season, that within light of some things that have occurred in the last few months, that we could possibly have one or maybe two of the Cannabis Ad Hoc Committee meetings to kind of go over a couple of the changes in the state for 2020, and also maybe some necessary changes locally. I had kind of brought it up back in July, and we wanted to get through the budget, and now we're going into 2020, and there are some few changes, so I thought if it would be nice if maybe an ad hoc meeting for sometime early January could be scheduled to move forward, to complete 2020 and 2021, if that's something that we could maybe possibly get accomplished.
Okay, Kim?
Yep.
All right. Anybody else?
Sarah Montgomery, 5734 Antelope Court in Weed. So first of all, thank you to the Chamber for putting on the Old Fashioned Christmas. I unfortunately was unable to be there, but heard really positive things. So thank you to everybody who committed their time to that. I did want to speak on cannabis in the city and some ongoing issues. While I am not involved in the businesses themselves, I am concerned about conversations happening behind closed doors. And this is pertaining specifically to a business in which my brother has a vested interest. I want to be clear in that I do not have a vested interest. However, in a community in which we continue to talk about growth in the city of Weed and promoting business and bringing business in, I think that there are ordinances that are left open for a lot of discussion. And in the interim, while we're trying to do our best to interpret said ordinances, we are impacting multiple businesses and people's livelihoods. I know that there's been conversations amongst Ron Stock, Bob Winston, and various city council members regarding Lemurian Industries. I know that there are other businesses that are closed and are obtaining licenses and operating outside of the city of Weed with a Weed City license, primarily the Canna Trading, operating in San Francisco, running a deliveries business, and not having a business open here in Weed. So I'd like to express my discontent in the city not following up with those businesses specifically, and I feel that it's something that needs to be looked into. And I also think that there needs to be clarity amongst the council, the manager, city attorneys, as to what takes place, specifically in regards to Lemurian Industries. I know that there were a lot of special hearings held. They've adhered to the various policies that this council has put forth, and they were approved. In opening their business and running their business, they are now being told something very different. And I think the part that's upsetting is that, again, we as a city have an opportunity to create a tax base that isn't otherwise there, that's not a gas station, and we're not looking into that in a very serious way. I think that there's more than enough room for multiple businesses to be ran in this community, and I know that the Planning Commission is also another place that we need to go. So I would just like to make sure that this is in a public record. I ask for transparency with the council and that there are not private conversations happening outside of this office in regards to that business and potentially harming their livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? So anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay, thanks. Moving forward, council member announcements. Mr. Green, do you have anything?
I'll say no
Okay.
right now.
All right.
I'm still thinking
Okay.
over how to
Are you
respond.
gonna, you're gonna wait? Okay, Mrs. Green?
I do not.
Mr. Palfini, I know you have something.
Not too much, actually. Not too much. I was a participant in North State Giving Tuesday. I would say that I think there was an article in the paper that there was a lot of money donated, and on behalf of the organizations that I belong to that received some of that money, I would like to thank the public for their donations. It's a very worthy cause. You get to pick and choose. So if you didn't do it this year and you're out there in the public somewhere, try and do it next year. It's once a year. I think that's it for today. I did go to the Christmas party, so that was a good thing. More marshmallows, though.
Are we, okay.
I'm good.
I didn't miss the marshmallows, but Apparently I must have missed something. I am on the County Transportation Committee. And it's probably something that not that many people know about, but it is, there's 2 county supervisors and there's 3 city council members from throughout the county. And it's where this money comes back from the state into our county for roads. We have a new director who is somebody out of Chico. It's a company out of Chico that does this. And he's been working for 3 weeks now, and we met him on Tuesday, and I feel very positive about him. He really wants to help, so it looks like it's going to be good, and he found us $56,000. So that's always good, when somebody new comes in and finds you something. And that's the only thing I have done besides the Christmas party, and it was good. Stacy, did you think of anything yet? Are you good?
I do have 2 things. We have movement on getting our connection back with the TV live broadcast for the meetings, with great help with our executive director from the chamber and Jeremy, who's our tech here, our main contact. So I'm thinking we should have that going in the next 60 days. It won't even take that long. But we'll have it going on the channels, and I can't remember the channels, Mr.
Dinges.
Yes, Mr. Richard. He knows the channels, but there's 2 channels that'll be live at the time of our meeting, so it'll be broadcast. And you can still go and look and see the copy of the meetings will be in like live form where you can, double click and it'll come on. But it will go back to our live feed,
Okay.
and that's good to know. It was just some communication and difference of personnel.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to move forward with our hearing for, do I read this part? The architectural review?
Yeah, Board of Appeals.
Okay, the Board of Appeals and appeal of a planning commission vote on architectural design review. So, open the hearing? Yes, and hear from staff now.
Thank you, Mayor. Oops, is this on? Yeah, there we go. This is action is for an appeal of a decision made by the Planning Commission last meeting. This is a required report by the government code, by the City Council's Municipal Code, Section 18.40.050, setting forth the reasons for the action taken by the commission. Such report shall be submitted in writing at the hearing. So I'm going to be brief. We attached and incorporated by reference the staff report for the actual project, but I'm going to have to assume that you've read it, and I don't want to go through it because it takes a while. And anyway, so this is a design review, was a design review pursuant to Section 18.24.040 of the Municipal Code. Basically, that's the requirement for design review, which states any permitted buildings in certain zones need to have their site plan and everything reviewed for basically for nothing more than mainly compatibility with the surroundings, and also look at the materials for walls, treatments, how many parking spaces there are, and so forth. On November 20th, the Planning Commission really couldn't render a majority vote on the project described in the report. It was a 2-2 tie, so basically it failed, that motion failed. The applicant has appealed the decision. In summary, the staff report record indicates that the project is compliant with the site standards for parking, snow removal, street access, location of utilities, height restrictions, parcel size, setbacks, and all the requirements that are set forth in the application packet. If you look on the attached application packet, there is a list of site plan requirements, and that's kind of like the only real thing that we require. And then they make a finding about its compatibility. The building is a 7,000 square foot wooden built structure with timbered entryways and other roof treatments that, like dormers and those kind of things that break up the, monotony, I guess you could say, of a long rooftop. It also was all the parking was there. Basically, it's a 7,000 square foot building, but we don't really go for the gross floor area. We separate out the storage areas, and so basically, the usable space is about 5,500 square feet. The parcel is zoned CM, which allows for all uses in the C2 and C1 zone. And the proposed use, which is a liquor store, is a use by right in that zone, meaning that there's really no question whether there can be a liquor store there, or let's just say if there was an existing building and someone wanted to open up a liquor store, we wouldn't even be doing a review. And so, yeah, no use permit is required or anything. So the surrounding properties are of similar construction, namely with stucco wall treatments and timbered or rock face on same elevations and metal roofing. Staff also commented on the buffer zones that were kind of built into the area with parking lots being abutted. Like we have the proposed store, parking area right next to the parking area of the hotel, so there's plenty of space and transition zones, I guess you could call it. The project was, in staff's opinion, qualified as an infill project under the California Environmental Quality Act, therefore exempt from the CEQA statute. And so following the presentation of the staff report, the discussion was centered around questioning the land use, and that there was a certain proposed yet not required access point to a neighboring property that was on the site plan that was in question. But it also revolved around past performances of the property owner concerning blight and other negative results. And I believe we did have some objection of the land use itself, which is a use by right. The bulk of the discussion, including input from one public member, was about the condition of properties throughout the city and elsewhere owned by the applicant. Staff did respond at times by restating the scope of review set forth in the municipal code. And the aesthetics of the building and site and its compatibility with surroundings were not consistently discussed, and that some commissioners actually felt it was a good design. So essentially, it was one of those functions of we had a quorum, but we didn't have a tie-breaking we didn't have a swing vote. And so that's what the result was. So basically, they filed an appeal, and that's what we're doing here now. The staff's recommendation hasn't changed. I look at these projects from a point of law standards and construction, aspects. So I recommended approval of the project because it was compliant with our standards. So, thank you.
Thank you. And that was the correspondence, right?
That's my report for
Staff
the
report. That's the
planning
staff
commission.
report.
Yeah.
So we can go to,
If you have questions of the project, I can answer them too. And we also have the applicant's designer here. That would
would you
be,
like to speak?
Pardon me, I kind of jumped ahead of Keith there for a moment. Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Kurt Reichel. I am the applicant representative and designer of the building. I'm here to answer any questions and address any of the issues. I do have a personal comment I'd like to make that I was a little bit shocked at the Planning Commission, and in all the years I've been doing this, I've never had such a personal animus directed at a client. This is an architectural review. It's not a personality issue. And quite honestly, I was shocked. That having been said, I'd like to reserve any time. If this kind of flows back to where we were before, I'd like to be able to address some of the issues that might be raised. Other than that, I won't stir it so it doesn't stink more.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I have some questions for both for Keith and for, I didn't get his first name, I'm sorry.
Kurt?
Kurt, okay.
Yes.
This is an architectural review application?
Yes.
Which means we can take a look at the architecture of the building and actually have comments and input regarding that building?
Yeah, there's a specific code section, 18.24.040, that requires, in certain zones, new buildings to submit drawings, elevations, site plan, and stuff like that, and basically compare it with the standards we have for parking, snow storage, at times, what the materials are, but there's really no laws on the materials, but also whether it's compatible and fits with the neighborhood and would, the design would not be a detriment to, to what's around it. Basically, it's compatibility at that point.
But it is subjective.
Yeah, there's findings that they have to make. There's a
So
finding.
if I felt that those buildings were, or this architectural design was a little bit deficient as far as I was concerned, as far as what the surrounding buildings consist of?
Yeah.
Could I make a recommendation as to a review of those designs or a suggestion as to modification?
Well, yeah, a lot of times, there's a little bit of negotiation done at this point where they could ask questions. Let's say if you were a planning commissioner, yes, you could ask questions and probably suggest a design that would actually suit you better. And if it's everybody's agreeable, it would be an approval as modified by the commission.
But in order to get that approval, we would have to see those drawings. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. It depends on how the, like, when we did the rec center, they came with a change, but they had to go back in front of the planning commission because it wasn't part of the approval. But if it's just modified, like saying, we need to have 2 more parking spaces, here instead of like, say, a driveway, is what, that is the
Well, I
situation.
was thinking of the overall design of the building, as far as like the dormers, the size of the dormers, the size of the entrance, things of that nature.
Well, what do you mean? Like, if you said you wanted 12-foot dormers?
Well, I'm
instead of
looking at
10?
his, and he's got dormers, I don't know, I'm just subjectively looking, but they look like they're 6 or 8 foot across. Compared to the whole frontage of the building, they're rather minimal. I think our area in question here is an area where we already have truck stops, we already have fast food. We have a conference center proposed, and we're trying to maybe do a little bit of upgrading in the neighborhood. So could we have a little upgrade in the construction standards?
Well, if you can make the finding that it's not, like, let's say you don't think it's compatible and you want to make it compatible, well, that's really it. It's the compatibility, but there is a finding we have to make. That you'd have to have reasons. It's just not like arbitrary, if you know what I mean.
I understand
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at those designs, and it looks like a big, long building with 2 teeny-weeny dormers and a very minuscule entrance.
Well,
If we're trying to upgrade, or at least maybe not upgrade the neighborhood, but making it compatible, we have the grocery outlet, which has a little more monolithic design, but it is more substantial feeling. We have a motel that's pictured in there. It also has columns that are more substantial and, to me, looks like better quality. Again, that's subjective. That's why I'm asking. If we could have a better design on that building, I could probably.
but it is a design review, so,
I would like to see, I don't know about anybody else, it's just my opinion. To satisfy me, it would have to be a little bit more substantial.
Well, as far as
Than what's
like
presented.
points of law goes, we don't have design guidelines. So,
We do have a design, don't we have a design guideline or
well, that's for
architectural?
downtown, and it's a western.
Oh, it's
theme.
not the
And
western,
then, you know, I
okay.
hate to say this, but it never really was properly adopted.
Right, okay.
So it really isn't there.
So it's subjective all the way around. So if we don't have design standards, we're kind of going
It's
one at
about-
a time.
Yeah, and it's about the setting. Mainly, it's about where it's at
Mm-hmm.
and what's surrounding it. And we have Pilot next to it
Mm-hmm.
with stucco siding, same kind of roofing. And we have the hotel, which is lap siding. It's a little older design. And then we have Grocery Outlet, which is another kind of split, it's a masonry block with stucco, basically. I recommended approval because I have evidence on the record that shows that it looks like those other buildings. I'm not gonna go out there with a measuring tape.
Oh, I
about the
understand that.
dorm,
I'm just,
you know,
I'm just
yeah.
looking at the dormers going, for the length of the building, we're, in comparison to the whole building, that I thought that they could be a lot more substantial. I don't think that's a huge cost factor.
Am I able to comment?
Yeah.
Okay, I
of
don't want to
course.
interrupt you guys. Are
No,
having
that's
so much
fine.
fun.
Actually, you should have joined in a long time ago.
Sizing the dormers is not a big deal. We can make them bigger if you think that's something we need to do.
How about the entranceway? Can we make that a little
The
bit more?
entranceway, part of the reason why we kind of went with what we've got is because there's a tremendous problem in Weed with people camping out in places. And we'd like an entry that provides the ability for people to get in and out, but not an entry that allows people space to occupy and flop. And so we're trying to keep it broad enough so that it maintains the building, but not so broad that some of the homeless and people that are camping out currently that we're dealing with.
I don't think we see anybody camping out on open
Well,
doorstep,
well-
but I would say that if the sides were open, that wouldn't be an issue.
My personal experience with all the projects that I've dealt with my client, we've had numerous times where I've been there when the police have showed up to get rid of the people that are flopping on the property, either in doorways or in hallways or whatever. I can think of 4 occasions in the last year that I have personally been there when it has occurred. That was the premise for the entry. If making the entry bigger would be helpful, we don't mind.
It's just my view. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm chiding in here, and it's just me, and I
Well,
have
that,
three
I'm
other
just
council
throwing
members.
out what the premise of the design for the entry was. Not that it can't be bigger if you'd like it bigger.
I would like to see something at least on paper bigger.
Well-
I mean, something that we could go, okay, again, we're trying to build a conference center adjacent to that, or semi-adjacent to that property. The better we can make the neighborhood, I think you just,
Well,
okay, we have gas stations, we know that, we got fast food, okay, now it's time to kind of move on from that phase of our life, and I'm thinking if we can upgrade, we can upgrade. I'm leaving out my main issue here, as you know what my main issue is, so I'm trying to avoid that particular issue, but as far as the consistency and architecture of this building, I could see that it could be improved. That's me. I don't know about other council members.
the only comment that I would have to this, if whatever we do, we could do contingent upon submitting, and maybe Ron could be the person that makes that judgment, we're on a time constraint. We don't get approved tonight, quite candidly, this project's dead. In 2020, a new building code takes effect. We've been working with staff and everybody for quite some time trying to get to this point. We've spent a considerable amount of time with the architectural exterior and getting everything to here. So we're trying to beat the code for 2020. we don't get approved tonight, we don't finish the construction drawings, we don't get applied before December 31st, we're done.
How many code changes are there?
California Building Code,
Solar.
well, that's one of the many.
Okay.
There's various different sections, but
Yeah.
What is the cost difference?
I've not run a cost analysis on significant enough that it jeopardizes the project, quite candidly.
Quite candidly significant, it's not a number, but that's.
Well, I understand that, but I haven't run a complete cost analysis on it. I wasn't prepared for that. Had I known, I certainly would have done that.
I have a question. So are there two entrance doors?
There are two sides to the entrance into the building, and
So it's rectangle,
it's a rectangle building.
and there's two entrances.
There's two entrances.
Do those two entrances, does one face Pilot and the other one would face Dos Amigos?
Yes.
And so, okay.
No, pardon me. One faces Pilot and one faces the driveway at Pilot.
Okay.
The other faces west. So one's east and one's west.
Right, so one faces Dos Amigos.
No, well, yeah, it's kind of twisted.
I'm going to
It's
say
not
that
straight
south
west.
is grocery outlet,
South is grocery outlet.
north
then-
is the hotel.
Okay, so north and south.
Oh, they face the hotel and grocery outlet?
Yes.
The entrances,
Yes, essentially.
and there's two.
There's two.
Okay.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you get down there and all the names of those streets down there, I'm not real sure who lives where. But, so that was, okay, so
Yeah.
one faces the hotel, one faces grocery outlet, the entrances.
Correct.
And where is the truck, where are the trucks coming in for loading and unloading?
They will come in off of Black Butte Drive,
Okay,
in and out.
and there's a door for that storage?
At the very rear of the building on the
And rear is Pilot
east
side?
Pilot side,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I give directions by turning right at Texaco and, under the arch and railroad
I'm a guy,
tracks.
we don't do directions.
Okay, Keith, I have a question for you. If we approve this tonight, it's a go,
Well, yeah, they can get a building permit at that point.
right? So,
Sorry. Yes, they can get their building permits, yes. And this
So-
is an appeal, so basically you'd be granting the appeal, I guess? I guess that's how that works, yeah.
and they can go. So they go in and they can take out trees. And they
No,
can.
no, they have to get a tree permit when they get their building, right before they're gonna, after they pay the fees and the building permit is approved, then they can get the tree permit. And
Okay.
that's granted by the planning commission,
Okay.
yeah.
And let's say they come in and take out the trees. And then they go, forget it, we don't want to build it anymore.
Well,
Does
that's
that
kind of
hap-
why, that's kind of why we make it so they can't get the building, they can't get the tree permit until they pay all the fees and do get the building permit.
This is one of the comments that was at the planning commission meeting was, oh, they're just going to take out the trees and not do anything.
Did you?
But common sense needs to be applied here. The cost of removing those trees to do nothing is absolutely absurd. Nobody's going to spend that kind of money. You can use the property for what he's doing right now, which is parking a whole bunch of junk on it. You don't have to remove the trees. There's no incentive for him to get this permit and remove the trees and go, oh, forget it.
You can park more.
It's
He could get more
prohibitive.
junk on it.
Pardon?
He could put more junk on it.
Well, at what cost? The cost of removing those trees is pretty expensive. To say, I want to store more stuff on there and I'm going to spend how many
Honestly,
thousands of dollars to
he has
remove
put-
trees?
He has put junk on property that he has spent money on already. So I have to say,
Well,
that is one of my arguments anyway.
I
So
understand that, but,
if you understood it, then that wouldn't be a
well,
question or a statement.
it doesn't have anything to do with the removal of the trees. The trees are not going to provide him any greater area or less area than what he currently has to store junk.
So if he cuts down, sorry. Mr.
Yeah, it's okay, go ahead.
So if we cut down trees and he applies for a building permit.
No, you get the building permit first,
And then he
pay
cuts
all the
the-
fees.
Okay.
Then you apply for a tree cutting.
So how
permit.
substantial are the fees?
That I don't know, I'm just a planner.
Few hundred? Ron, would you know?
The tree removal, depending on the hiking range, anywhere from about $4,000 to $8,000 per tree.
Is the cost for cutting down the trees?
Yes.
Okay.
I work at Black Fox Timber Management, FYI.
Thank you.
Thank you,
thing-
Sarah.
this-
I appreciate that.
One
This,
thing
this
that,
tree permit process is a little awkward, I'd have to say. Because, I don't know, sometimes I think.
I just
it should
seen
be
more money
required.
thrown away than that, so sorry.
No, I just think it's an awkward thing to
In-
have a discretionary permit issued after the approval of a project. It's kind of awkward, that's all.
in the pre-application process, we warn the applicant that the larger trees on the perimeter of the property, particularly the larger trees on the perimeter between them and the driveway for Pilot, they're not going to get a tree permit, cutting permit for.
That's good.
They can remove trees in the center of the property in order to erect the building and to put the parking lot in. But they can't deforest the entire property. The costs of the building permit are going to be in the neighborhood of, my guess would be in the neighborhood of 25,000, primarily because of the traffic impact fee. The traffic impact fee is based on the average daily nighttime number of trips to the property at $470 per trip. So we use a standard, which is an industry standard that has a book that tells us, for a wholesale liquor operation, how many nighttime contacts they're likely to have. And that's likely to be fairly substantial.
Okay. So how about, when we go to lighting, do we have a dark sky lighting?
We've provided lighting on the drawings and shown you where it is.
But is it compliant with dark sky?
Yes,
Is that the hooded lighting?
yes.
And we have that as a statement right here on our file, please, as it is.
It's on the record as
On
a
record, thank you.
downward facing hooded fixture.
With regard to the trees that, on your maps, if you'll take a moment, the trees that we're saving are designated, the trees we plan on removing are also designated.
My major concern is that you get a building permit, you cut down the trees, you take, and you leave a vacant lot, it gathers more junk, okay? That is my major concern, based upon your client's actions and behaviors as a norm. That is my concern. If I have not ever expressed that clearly, I hope that is very clear.
It is. It is a very clear concern. But with all
and-
due
and you-
respect, can we get more on there than's already there?
Yeah, you probably could, based upon other properties of his
Okay.
that I have seen. So we don't want to go down the road too far. Also, on one of the conditions on parking, there is a mention of vehicles, parking spaces and vehicles. Can we make sure that as a condition that all parked vehicles will be operational, licensed, and personal, with no bus parking allowed? Something of that nature where, again, I hate to be ultra-specific, but I'm just looking again at past practice. And I hate to be the butt in the
Well,
council, but sorry.
it's fine, and sometimes future happenings get judged on past experiences, and I get that. We're trying to make some progressions, and I hope everybody sees that. People wouldn't normally spend this kind of money.
I would love to be proven wrong.
Well-
Believe me.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong any day of the week. I am fine as hell. Okay, so, sorry.
I do have some, your initial statement about the preferences on the owner and responsible behavior, that is a factor. So you say it doesn't have to be regarded, but it does need to be looked at and addressed. And however, this is a different project, but you look at the behavior of the participants. And I've grown up here since I was 3 years old, 1966, went off for college and came back, been here 10 years. And I'm not happy with some of the buildings that are not kept in, and the properties kept in a certain amount, a certain environment. So it is a factor. So I disagree with you when you said the first time that it's not really personal about the owner but some of the behaviors are still happening and they're affecting the environment in our town. And I'm concerned about it. So all I heard was that there was probably access parking from Pilot that they wouldn't allow. Is that still in case? Or?
That was just something that is proposed on the site plan, but still needs to be worked out between the adjacent owner. There is a grade difference there, and I think that Plan A is to have that access. Plan B would to just put 2 more parking spaces in there.
Because my thing is, I understand your initial push, but that's not my concern. If it doesn't make it by the timing it doesn't, we need to do it right and take the time to look at everything.
Well, that's true, and I can appreciate that. If I inferred that past experiences are not an implied thing here, I didn't mean to infer that.
That was your opening statement, it was implied.
No, what I meant to say was, things got very personal at the Planning Commission. In 45 years, I have never experienced that.
Maybe it has never been addressed.
Well, I guess, I just have never
It's no guess, it's
experienced
a
it.
fact.
And all I said was, if the hearing gets closed and it regenerates to that, I wanted the opportunity to come back and address it. That's what I meant by that. I did not mean to say that previous actions aren't a fair judgment of future experience.
As a business, we need to give every business that opens the fair opportunity to operate correctly.
Sure.
And that's all I'm coming from, but there's so much stuff there, and I'm telling you. And we need to address some of these things because our town is not flourishing because of some things that are happening by business owners. And this may be one of the owners. I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying it's sad. It's sad when we look at some of our properties and some of our areas that aren't kept and some business owners that are not taking care of it. It just is not okay.
Well, part of the problem has been for the North State, when the logging industry went, the economy went, and we're all searching for ways to bring money back into our communities to be able to help sustain some of these things. The theater downtown, for instance, some of the stores that have been vacant downtown for quite some time. She's occupied one. These things have progressively been going forward. Everybody's trying to make some effort here, and I know my client is as well. He doesn't pay me to do things he isn't going to do. I can tell you that for sure.
We can continue,
So-
but I disagree with that.
Okay.
I disagree with some of the owners that are not taking care of buildings. I'm looking at them every day.
Yeah.
So that's not correct.
So if I may, we can't really deny much here.
Right.
Am I correct?
Kim-
Is that Keith?
I would have to defer to the city attorney on that.
Hang on a second. Kim, did you have anything?
No.
Okay, can we open this up to public comment?
You have to go through the hearing.
Well,
Are there some people?
no, we are in it, right?
Yeah, we're in the hearing.
Are there people that disagree?
I don't know.
You have to.
He is I think we've done number 4, a proponent, arguments or evidence, okay? Anybody that
So we're at
besides this
6,
council?
public comments.
Yeah.
Is it, clarification, is it opposing the building going up? Is that what commentary is for?
That's only, is it?
Well, what are we on?
Yeah, we're on 6.
Are we on proponents or opponents?
We've done both.
Oh.
Just public comments.
Okay. Here. So anybody for or against?
I don't know that I'm for or against, because listening to this, nobody has bothered to say, what are we building? What's going in here? What's the potential, I mean, what are y'all talking about? A liquor store, I'm sorry, I did not
Wholesale
hear the
liquor
word
ware-
liquor store kind of.
Wholesale liquor warehouse.
Like liquor barn or something like that? Okay.
And that's not really what,
And
It's a
that's not
use
the
by
point
right.
of it, yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay, what? Introduce myself again, Elizabeth Tabor, 218 and 242 Main Street. I stare at the other buildings, and he actually did all my drafting work. He's amazing, by the way. So yeah, there's many different issues and factors here that go into place. I wouldn't want to be any of you right now. Yes, we've been talking about, for the 2 years that I've been around, developing more business, more jobs, creating that. Is the city allowed to say, if this permit is given for this project, that it has to be completed in X amount of time? Can you say, if we give this permit, this building and project may be completed, has to be completed in 12 months? Or that type of a thing, to ensure that if this is what's going to happen, is actually going to happen to completion? Is there any type of, if I get a building permit for my house, I have to do certain phases in a certain amount of time and have it completed? I mean, is there something the city can do in that aspect to assure that what's going in there really goes in and it happens? Those are my questions, just from listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sarah Montgomery, 5734 Antelope Court in Weed. I commend and back up the council 100% on some of the characterizations of said property owner. Not only does the property, most of the properties that he owns are in constant states of disrepair. They are dumps. They are storage units for boats, for RVs, for shattered glass, that make other places non-usable. Sidewalks are full of litter, things that could hurt small children while walking. Prime example of this is the old hospital in Mount Shasta that has a god-awful fence that he put around it and now just stores a bunch of junk. So no offense to your architectural design, Kurt, that was just standing up here. I do not envy the position in which you were in, but I understand you're trying to make a living as well. But if we're being quite frank, Cliff is a terrible property owner. Money is not an issue for him. I don't care what kind of recession it's been in. He's taken advantage of said recession, and he has continued to scoop up properties and continue to let them fall into further states of disrepair. And I think that there needs to be extremely strict parameters that the city puts into place. Yes, be open for business, but be open for businesses that are going to be for the betterment of the community. And I can't say that this particular business owner, by his past business handlings, is going to uphold to that.
Anybody else?
Raymond Streck, 3038 Nighthawk Lane. As someone who is also involved in a business that is cantankerous as far as its potential societal deleterious impact, I have a lot of sympathy for what's happening right now. What I'd like to say is that if we're serious about making South Weed into a more of a visitor center, then perhaps design requirements similar to those which I was made to do on a non-outward facing business, including a wooden facade. We were utilizing natural colors. We have front gables that have pillars for a business that does not have public access. And so if the concern is that a large, and I think, maybe some people in the room have been to the Liquor Expo in Montague, and it's not a very pretty building. And if there's a conference center going in that we want to attract groups to utilize, that conference center staring at the backside of a 7,000 square foot steel building is perhaps, not going to be the most, people aren't going to go home and say, man, I really love that view of the mountain. And man, that steel building looks great too, So I just think that perhaps there's a happy medium here whereby we can ensure that the neighborhood does get spruced up, ensure that the area does have some betterment, for lack of a better word, in terms of its overall design, because it is rather hodgepodge what's happened over the last 10 years down there in South Weed. I look forward to being a part of fixing that over the years to come, but in the meantime, the business impacts itself, I mean, you know, it's a use by right, and as someone who's gone down this pathway, I got a lot of sympathy for that, but I think that there are amicable compromises to be had as far as what the building can look like and how that can reflect our community in that part of town.
Any more comments from the public? Okay.
Just to be clear, the building is not a steel building.
Yeah, it was stucco and,
It's a wood frame building with stucco.
yeah.
Okay.
Similar,
Hold on for a second. So,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
How could you draw a couple, I don't know if you're the one who does the drawings, but can you draw a couple options here?
Well, I can. Our problem is time. So if you guys are comfortable trusting Ron and Keith, I've worked with both of them for quite some time. If you set some parameters for them, and I don't know, the city attorney can let you know whether this is a workable deal or not, you set some parameters, we'll start massaging things around to get to these parameters. You know,
Are we on solid ground, Bob?
I'm not sure what sort of changes you have in mind. If you're just talking about some cosmetic things,
Facade.
you could defer that to Ron and Keith to work on that, to add that to the approved design. Without changing what you have, you're going to add some things to it. You can add some dress-ups, some landscaping or whatever it might be. You could defer that. You could assign that to them.
Actually, it's facade and it would be architectural on the building. The landscaping also would, but I would at least start with the facade on the building.
If you give some direction as to what it is you're looking for, Keith and Ron could work out the details and incorporate those. But you have to give them some direction. Don't just say, you guys do what you think is right. That's not going to help them.
I already kind of did, is I would like those dormers need to be a little bit more substantial, just the entranceway, whether it needs to be a little bit more substantial. It doesn't necessarily need to be bigger, but if the columns are 4x4s, they could just as easily be 12x12 or 16x16, something that, again, lends
you're talking about the
substance.
support columns for the
Yeah.
porch? We were trying to keep those in wood, so we had wood and stucco together. Much larger than that, we're going to get into a stucco column as opposed to something with wood. So we can do that, increasing the dormers, making the columns larger, those are not a problem. If you really feel the size of the entry needs to be increased, we can do that.
What I'm looking for is, again, is that if we're trying to, we haven't enough of the regular commercial facades out there, it is time to start looking at upgrading the rest of the area, in my opinion. Again, something that is more just substantial feeling. This just, to me, no offense to Dollar General if you're out there, but kind of is a Dollar General feel. And again, I would like to see, they at least also, we also addressed Dollar General originally, which was a box, and then they at least, although the windows are not real, they're at least, they look like they're windows. And again, it becomes an appearance factor, not just, you know.
Well, again, with a little bit of direction, and if I can work with Ron and Keith, I'm sure we can arrive at something that would be workable. I don't know if that works for Ron and Keith, or if I'm stepping out of bounds here or what, but.
Well, Ron's got nothing to do, right, Ron? Just kidding. Sorry.
I'm getting the impression that I understand what they're thinking about. Are you familiar with the buildings at COS?
Some.
You know how they have the rock wall up to a certain height and then stucco above it?
Or
Yeah.
wood, yeah.
The possibility of doing that on 3 sides of the building, the front and the
And the two
side
sides that,
to the structures, not to the
Yeah.
driveway. have you seen the way in which a pillar can be built so that it has a rock and concrete base up to about 3 feet and then wood above that?
I don't think those kinds of things are out of reach.
That would give the idea of greater substance, but still allow you to have that wood portion from 3 feet to the,
On the columns you're talking about out front?
yeah.
Yeah.
Great Northern also had a proposed building, and because of funding, they modified that. But their original was some rock facades about I don't know, probably 4 foot up the wall or so, type of thing.
You know,
So I think if you're willing to work with Ron, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I just would, taking away my personal animus about your client, I won't take any of that back, but at least if the building was a little bit better design, I don't know if that's quite right, but a little bit more fancy architecture.
Don't worry, I'm not that sensitive. It's
good.
okay.
I would be more inclined.
You want more curb appeal.
Yeah, there you go, curb appeal. You must watch HGTV or whatever it's called.
Can I?
Go ahead, Keith.
I just want to say, really what you're making is you're setting up kind of an administrative process for staff to approve something after the fact. So we're going to need a little bit more direction, like something more substantial, doesn't necessarily tell us, because when you do an administrative decision, it has to be kind of a checkbox, criteria style, like.
Maybe we could have a phone conversation as to what that might be.
I don't know, I just feel funny about staff using discretion. That's what you guys do.
Too much discretion, right, yeah.
Because it's not really cool, to
Okay.
have administrative staff doing discretionary action.
So we could define it with larger dormers, a rock facade.
Well, larger meaning, how large?
20 by,
larger would be
20 by
6
60,
inches.
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just looking at this where you have, and I know the audience can't see this, but it looks like a very long building with 2 tiny dormers on it, and I'm saying as if, and yeah, with tiny window, but if it was, they were double that size, at least it would have.
If I may, the dormers were set to size over the framing members that come down on the roof. So
Okay.
if we do something with the dormers, almost doubling them would be the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, so that they would at least go with your.
We could increase the size of the dormers, that's not a problem. We can work with some rock facade issues, I don't think that's a problem. Doing the columns to dress them up a little, we can make them out of just about whatever anybody wants if you think it needs a substantial or beefier look.
Is that enough? Or that take away?
Yeah, when you get into the dimensions like that, like doubling the size based on the fact that it's just a matter of basic law. The administrative law is supposed to be something that's not discretionary, that's all.
Okay.
And I would, probably defer to the city attorney to comment on that, if, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Stacy.
What he said. So with the changes. and
Microphone.
I don't have architectural view, I have something else. It's creative arts, we'll have architectural. But my question is about, can this all be taken care of with permits before January? Whatever proposed changes that we've talked about?
Does it have to come back to us with the changes?
I would have to see.
I can do all my end in 2 days. I could have it to him tomorrow afternoon after I talk with my client. The question is, we're on an appeal and you guys don't meet again this month. And that puts us after the January deadline.
So we're going to have to approve this or not approve it tonight.
Well, yeah,
And take in good faith that he has gotten our idea of what we're talking about.
Well, let's jump one step forward and see if we can smooth some of the personality conflicts we have with other people, and they can speak to you about me. I don't say things that I'm not going to do, so
I know.
I will hold my end up. That's all I'm trying to tell
Yeah,
you.
and I believe I have faith in you because you've never given me a reason not to. It's the person that hired you that I don't have a ton of faith in,
Right.
and I feel bad about that because I want my, I don't trust him. He's
Yeah.
got buildings all over town that are all questionable. And so the fact, do I think that this one's going to be okay? Well, I think you're going to be okay because I think you'll design it and I think you'll build it. But if you come back in 3 years and look at it, it could be kind of, I hope it still looks like what it looked like when you built it. And that's because I also have this feeling for the rest of you that it's kind of the same way with Love's. The people were sold the property to, and it was zoned commercial, and they were sold the property, and they could build it there. They can do that. There's nothing in our zoning that says they can't. It's kind of the same thing with this. I'm only speaking myself, a lot of us don't necessarily want him to build another building because for some reason we just think it's going to go the same way as the one that's across the street, that's half rock and half something else.
And boarded up.
And that makes me sad. That makes me sad that I'm going to have to sit here and approve this because I think that we have to approve it because I don't see anything wrong in it, legally, technically, but it's more of personally. It makes me sad that we need to say yes on it. And do I think you'll do a great job? I do.
Well, thank you.
But I hope in 3 years you still think that it looks like what you wanted it to.
We don't have a morality condition.
We don't.
We don't necessarily
Good, fortunately, yeah.
We do have.
know that it's not going to be good in 3 years. And some of the buildings we've talked about in the area have been there for a considerable amount of time, so I understand some of the patchwork that's gone on. We've just tried, in my work with these gentlemen, tried to get something that's corresponding to the area. So
And I understand
that's the
that.
direction we went.
And
I would have gladly put columns with rock and all that if that was kind of in the suggestion. It never came to my plate, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it.
okay, so we can close the public hearing.
Thank you.
To do that. Are you sure? And we can have a discussion now. The council discussion.
My voice is that I think we take an ethics thing we do every 2 years, and some of that verbiage talks about when we make decisions for the city. So I think that is the part of what we have to make. And I'm not for it, and I will vote no. And again, I don't have the architectural numbers here, but it's like you're putting something in that little tiny space. I don't know what that.
Well, it obviously fits, or he wouldn't have been able to design
I can't see without the trees. That's my mind. I see the trees there, and I see all the
You see-
vehicles that are there. So,
You see old coffee huts, you see motorhomes, you see cars.
and yes, the behavior of people is important. We have to support that. So I disagree with that.
Kim?
So my concern is what's going to happen to the trailer and the coffee hut and the motor home and all that stuff that is on that property. Where's it going to go? It's going to go to another property and probably right across the street. And I also say no.
What are our legal grounds for saying no?
I haven't heard any yet. You've got to be able to articulate the incompatibility of the proposed design with the surrounding buildings and environment. I haven't heard that yet announced.
I said environment. I used that word.
You heard that word, but you haven't articulated how it's incompatible. That's the
Environment that's
problem.
not conducive to a positive element for the city. How else can you explain it?
I'm saying it has to be more specific than that. You have to say, how is it incompatible?
I don't agree with that.
Well, I think it's.
Legally, I don't think.
Yeah, I think, morally, I would just not have any liquor stores, but I can't say that because it's America, and you can have liquor stores in America. So,
Let me be more specific on the question. If we say no, what are the repercussions to the city?
If there's an abuse of discretion by a legislative body such as yourselves, it's open to legal challenge. Whether that would happen, I don't know, but that's the answer to your question.
Well, I would entertain the actual verbiage of whatever, with the planning commission, those 2 votes that were against. We should know some more of the meat of that. If it was all personal, that's different. I don't believe it was that, and I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know. But that's what I'm reading here, and that's what I'm saying. Because all in the memo that you put together, Mr. Keith, suggests that it should happen. But I think there's some other aspects that we have to look at as elected officials. And that's just my belief, so no one can change that. So disagree if you want. I'm trying to look to see whatever's here, but
If we motion to table, does that eliminate discussion? Debate?
There is no debate to a motion to table. That has to be voted upon immediately before you proceed with anything else. You go with that motion first before you proceed.
Okay, I got that. So, okay,
and a motion to table just puts it on,
next month's agenda.
yeah, we need to make decisions and stand by them.
You don't understand next month's decision. Anyway,
and we
I-
would table it because we want him to bring back a better design.
Then that puts them in different specs with the permits and what's going to be allowed as a building after January. Because that's what, when you come at the last minute, that's when I'm like that.
Yeah, that's what, does it feel last minute to you also?
No, I've been working on this for quite some time. We weren't prepared for what happened at the planning commission
In November.
in November. So now we're really on the time crunch. And with all due respect, that's just where we are. And you guys might be in the same boat. I don't know.
Yeah, we are.
It's all or nothing.
So,
I'm not going to be pushed to make a decision because of the time
so if we
frame
tabled
of
it,
the builders.
we win.
Yeah,
And
I guess you do, and Weed loses. But that's
well, and I under,
personal opinion.
and I agree, because it could be jobs, it's gonna be taxes, and there's all of that. But then on the other hand, do we lose? And,
That's a decision you guys
yeah.
have to make.
And that's what, yeah, what is the law? I mean,
Ron and I were just talking about whether there may be a time limit for you folks to make a decision. I think you are compelled to make a decision within 21 days or something of that nature from
of
the
the
municipal
planning
code.
commission.
Yeah. So tabling it to next week is fine, but tabling it to next month would be a violation of that requirement.
When was the planning commission meeting?
November? Was it November, Sandy?
November 20th.
So did we even make 21 days since their meeting? Or is it 21 days?
You have
from
21
today?
days from the time you get the appeal to make a decision.
So when did we get the appeal?
We had to get it last week.
November 22nd?
November 22nd. It was received November 25th by the city of Weed.
Well, we don't have a November calendar on there, so I can't.
Today's
It's-
the day, 21.
Today's,
Oh, I'm looking at February, sorry. I'd have to look on my phone.
I move that we approve it. Is there a second?
Just to clarify, is it as amended with the additional
Yeah, with the columns,
changes? Yeah.
that I think he understands it, with the
Do-
columns and the,
Do you think it would be helpful if I just did mention what conditions of approval there already are on the project?
Yeah, that would
And it
help.
actually kind of addresses one of the concerns that you had about the parking. Condition number 2 on the original was, as per section 18.48.170 of the municipal code, Parking area shall be used exclusively for vehicle parking in conjunction with a permitted use. This is right out of the municipal code. With a permitted use and shall be so designed and maintained as not to constitute a nuisance at any time and shall be used in such a manner that no hazard to person or property or unreasonable impediments to traffic will result. So a lot of these laws are right in our own municipal code. And then I think the condition, I don't have this in my report, but the commission added a couple of conditions as well, and I'm not sure if that's part of the record.
I know, and
tonight.
Keith and I get that, but how often does our police department or our code enforcement people have to go down there to his other buildings and ask him to move the motor home, so he moves it 4 feet forward or across the street? I get that.
Well, no, you're,
But,
yeah,
but we
once
still
it's
have,
built and it's a parking lot, then that's when this applies.
well, I know, but he
Yeah.
has a parking lot right now.
No, I'm talking about a real parking lot with the business parking spaces.
Well, no, his parking, oh yeah, he does have that parking lot
No, I'm
too.
talking about when it's built, he'll
Right.
have a parking lot.
He has a restaurant now.
Right,
And it's a parking lot of junk.
well, right, but this is this is a project that this is the project we're reviewing. We're
Right.
not reviewing his other projects.
I know.
Okay?
Well,
It's kind of getting
And
frustrating.
according to what you're telling us, is that we cannot review his other projects to make a decision based upon today's project.
But that's certainly true. I have a correction to make what I just told you. I had an opportunity to look it up here. It's not 21 days, it's 45 days to make a decision. 45.
Because today's day 20.
From the date that the appeal is received, so whatever date, 20 plus 25, 45 days.
Could it be,
there's a motion on the table.
I just have a statement, sorry. In what you read, the architectural review on the document, it talks about the code section 18.24.040.
Yeah,
In the bold letters, it says at the bottom, that in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and such as not to be detrimental to the orderly and harmonious development of the city.
right.
So that addresses what we've been talking about.
Well, what would not be compatible and harmonious by building this structure as it's designed? That's what I think the city attorney was alluding to, basically.
we have a use by right, and we're here to approve the design of the building.
Right. Or
Yeah.
not. And it has to be based on something that's actually a nexus to what's really going on. Like, you can't place a condition of approval on the project that has nothing to do with a point of law or a mitigation measure or something like that. You know, that's especially true when it's a use permit, but if it's something as narrow as a design review, I would say that
But we can review the design.
that's what you're doing, yes.
And I think the responsibility of people working on it before it got here should have looked at this, and maybe addressed it to bring it higher, so we could have looked at it, not at the 12th hour. Because you guys were working on it 6-7 months, and there were some structure designs, if that was
No, I
communicated.
got the application right at the due date. I wasn't.
In November.
I wasn't working on this.
In
More
November.
like this Halloween, basically. is the date
Before the
cutoff date.
November.
We
Planning
can't
Commission
rush
meetings.
into do things without looking at every corner.
Well, it's an application. We have guidelines for when they can be turned in and what they're supposed to have. And we can't act on an incomplete application. This was a complete application. So objectively speaking, staff analyzed the site and all the stuff basically based on the municipal code.
And come at the last hour to get it approved. I have a
No.
concern
No.
about that.
No, they got it in on time. We
Right,
had the
but it's gonna kill
meeting.
the project.
Everything was just like normal. I don't see what's different about this project than any other project I've worked on here.
Because it's coming at the last year when January 1st will change the structure.
Well, that's something to do with the applicant. That doesn't have anything to do with how staff did anything.
I disagree. I think as a business partner, it does become a part of it. As a business partner, we should give that information. Okay, you're coming up to the 30 days and changes. I just think we have to, I think differently.
I wasn't recommending any changes myself. So the changes are coming at the last minute tonight.
Right, because we
Yeah.
just got the information. First time I seen the plans were.
Usually you don't get these. This
Yeah,
is a-
we
this
usually
is an
wouldn't.
appeal.
So
Because that's what the planning
So
commission
maybe
is
the
for.
planning commission did see something. That's why he said no.
repeat what you
No,
said on
they
the motion.
weren't.
Okay,
You have the motion on the floor.
I have a motion on the floor to approve the plans
With certain conditions, with the architecture.
with the architecture change that I think Kurt completely understands. He's been told.
And I will
few times.
most reluctantly, I'll second it. And I'll second it based upon the conditions that, not on any conditions, but based on the realization that the other things that we have, the other, what would happen after we actually, if we denied this at this point, based upon what we're suggesting, would probably go against us and probably put us in jeopardy as a city. And that's why I will second the motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the designs. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
2-2 split.
It's 2-2. Now what?
You have the 45 days to break the tie, so you can
Okay,
postpone this to the next opportunity to have the fifth person here, break the tie.
okay. We are having a special meeting. Can we talk about it as, it has to be open at a special meeting?
That's right.
But we're having a special meeting.
We're having a special meeting next week.
I suggest you move to table this to the next opportunity, whenever that might be.
Okay.
Is it next week, next month, whatever it
Next
might
week.
be? And then take it up then.
Okay? Okay, Sandy? All right.
Okay, done.
What date is the meeting?
Sorry, folks, for all
We
of
haven't
that.
decided that. That's actually next. Thank you. If you want to sit here for about another 10 minutes, you'll find out when it is.
Go ahead and make that motion, Mayor.
To- when the
Invite the
meeting is?
motion to table to the next.
Oh, I'll make a motion to table it to the next special meeting.
She need a second? She doesn't, does she? I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stacy's opposed. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, on to the regular agenda, and we are going to move D, Human Resources, up to the top, up to A. And we're going to hear an update from Jeff.
Yes.
He is our contract recruiter for the city manager position. And we are going to select a date for a closed session meeting. And we'll do that at the beginning of our, and then we'll go into closed session. Okay.
Hello and congratulations, Mayor Tabulero and Mayor Pro Tem Green. And
Thank
glad
you.
to be here again tonight. And I know.
That green.
No.
I know.
That green.
That green.
Kim Green.
Pronounced the same, right?
It's Stacy Green.
I didn't differentiate. Anyway, yes, tonight I have a staff report that I prepared for you, and basically what we are here tonight to do is to hopefully agree and be able to come together, set a special closed session meeting next Thursday, the 19th.
Next Thursday?
Next Thursday. And again, if
Yes.
this other issue could be brought into that, then you would have that to proceed
Yeah.
that meeting before we get into the closed session for the consideration of applications for city manager. And that's basically what we will be providing to you. I think at the end of this meeting, we have everything ready to go. All the applications we've received so far, at least through Tuesday, there are 19, of which a little over half, I believe, are based on my evaluation process I've gone through myself of all the applications. I believe we have at least 10 that are worthy of consideration by the council. There may be others, and the candidates I didn't think rose to that level that you may have some interest in. This is what this is all about. My agreement with the council, with the city, provides specifically, Section 5, that the council, retains ultimate discretion as to who you retain, who you select as your next city manager, okay? But my responsibility is, number one, to go out there and, as we've done over the past couple of months, advertise, get the word out in every way, shape, or form we could, on a national basis, to the profession, to those who might be interested and who meet the qualifications we're requiring and would have an interest in coming to California, to coming to Weed specifically, and to serving the city in particular in that capacity. So what we have advertised and what we have very specifically and explicitly declared that we are seeking in terms of the professional and personal attributes of the candidates are also the basis in which we've evaluated the applications that were submitted. And each of these applicants has their own methodology or means by which they convey to you who they are, what they're all about, and why they're interested. And those are some things we evaluate: the personal directness, the professional background, the experiences that maybe aren't directly related to the position, but could be transferable into this environment. And those who have a more direct, classic career ladder they followed in local government leading up to the city manager position, including those who are seasoned managers already and wanting to make another move.
Okay, and we got the information,
Okay?
so we're good.
So at this point in time then, we would just need to...
Thursday at 5:30.
Yeah, and we do have one more application that was received today.
Right.
The
Oh, today?
deadline, the final deadline is Monday, the 16th, and any additional that are received by then and the one we received today will be provided to you on Tuesday.
Okay,
Okay.
so 2 that Ken and I didn't see. Okay. Okay, so here at 5:30 on Thursday, we'll start out with,
I thought it was 1:15.
no, that was something different. No. That's why I didn't say, I actually would, are you good with Thursday, or can anybody do Tuesday?
I can do it in the morning.
No.
I think Thursday would be an
Thursday?
opportunity day because on this, where are we, on January?
The top Thursday, so it's the 19th.
On the 17th, that's just one day. If something else comes in, we won't have a chance to review.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay, yeah.
The 19th will give us plenty of time to
Okay.
kind of have that going on.
I think I'm working because my owner's gonna be out of town. What time is the meeting?
5:30?
Okay, I think I can do that and have someone cover it.
Okay.
Yes. I do have a related question, though. I don't want to open a worms, but is relocation a part of, are you communicating relocation to the candidates if you're talking with them? Or do we have relocation? I asked that early on, and I don't see that. Is that part of anything that we know about?
That's part of our discussion we'll have on Thursday as to where we would go from our 20 or whatever we have down to hopefully 10, where we're going to discuss the structure of the meeting or the structure of our interviews for probably the 10 finalists.
Right. The object tonight, and what we've had, and as a goal all along, is to, before the end of the year, complete the recruitment processes and move into the first part of the selection process, which is your evaluation of candidates and a determination during January, first full week in January, to set up what we call remote interviews that are done by Skype or by phone or some other manner for those semifinalists. And then from there, determining the finalists you actually want to invite within the next couple of weeks thereafter for personal interviews on site.
And so we'll discuss that on Thursday.
Yeah, and that's our director of finance. I'm concerned about some costs there, and I don't know, will we have any thing out there that's in a bucket that we can look at? And I'm concerned.
Her bucket's empty.
She always says her bucket's empty. She's a finance
I
director.
asked that
Too
question
bad.
early
No.
on for relocation because that's a part of our budget, and our city manager's leaving, we have personnel changes. It's a
Thursday at
necessary
5:30.
expense that the city has to make a selection. It's, nobody here, I said, except for myself, I guess, has gone through the process before. Typically, what we will do, that's up for discussion on how we want to bring everybody forward.
But we have some ideas or avenues or something.
Yes, and we'll discuss all of those on Thursday. It'll be an internal discussion, so all of those will be decided, and we'll figure out costs as they go. We'll try and make Emily happy as much as possible, but she'd probably be unhappy anyway.
Yeah.
If I said $20, it would be too much for Emily. Come on.
Yeah, she'd want it to be 19.
She-
Okay, we don't have to have any motion on this, right? We just, do we have to have a motion for a special meeting?
Yeah.
I move that we select Thursday, the 19th at 5:30 for a special meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And no opposed. Is there anything else?
As a closing comment, yes, we have, of the 5,000 that was allocated as costs for the recruitment process, there are approximately 700 left that could be applied to those kinds of concerns.
Thank you for
Thank you.
reducing our bill. Thanks, Jeff.
Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah, I told him the number.
She was smiling the whole time. She was good.
Oh. All right, moving on to item A. It's still item A, we just moved D up. Council will consider second reading and adoption of ordinance number 455-2019, redefining portions of the R1, R4, and CM zones and adopting a new map. And I have to abstain from that one? Yeah, okay.
I think Ron does too, so Keith would probably.
Yeah, I'm going to make a short presentation, though. We have two areas of the city that, of the Florence Loop area, which was zoned light industrial but has developed as single-family residence, and Woodridge Court, which is zoned R3 but has developed as R1 single-family residence. When we went through the updating of the general plan in 2017, the recommendation of the general plan was that these two areas should be rezoned to be consistent with the manner in which they have been developed. This is second reading of the ordinance to accomplish that.
Does anybody have any questions? Do I need to?
And it's a second reading.
It's the second reading. I'll make a motion to waive the reading of the ordinance in full and adopt by title only.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to the second adoption of ordinance number 455-219. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. And Sandy, let the record, okay?
Can I add something? I think you should probably adopt the notice of exemption for the California Environmental Quality Act as well.
That was on first reading.
Okay, so that's been done? All right, thank you. Sorry for
Thanks,
interrupting.
Keith. That's okay.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 455-2019, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Weed redefining portions of the R1, R4, and CM zones, and adopting a new map thereof as authorized by Weed Municipal Code Section 18.12.130 and 18.12.140.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do I get to do that there?
Yeah, you can do it anytime you want.
I like that thing.
Take the hammer away.
Can't wait till she gets home. She'll be
Okay,
pounding
zoning
down.
amendment on B, council will consider second reading and adoption of ordinance number 456-2019, amending Title 18 of the Weed Municipal.
Keith can answer any specific questions that you have. When we went through the updating of the housing element of the general plan in 2014, we submitted it to the state for review. They approved it, but they approved it subject to our adopting a handful of minor amendments to our zoning code. And we have gotten around to preparing an ordinance that accomplishes that. The ordinance is in front of you for second reading. It includes a density bonus regulation. It includes certain policies in regard to the parking spaces for a secondary unit and the definition of family, among other minor amendments.
And just, I might add, this will complete our implementation of that housing element. So now we're clear to go for grants, through
Good.
that last, what Rico's working on.
This
I
is
don't
the
think
same one that Rico was working on.
Yeah, one of the things that they always want you to do is to complete the stuff you said you were gonna do. And so this is doing that. We've done emergency shelters in the past, reasonable accommodation policies. We've changed our rules on manufactured home approvals. And this is the stuff that is just the last little change of a definition here, adding a policy that's mandated by the state. This is pretty much finally getting it done. I'm really happy to have it done.
On a second reading? Is there any public comment on that? Nope. Okay. Council.
I move to adopt, I move for the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 456, is that 456? Dash 2019, and waive the reading of the ordinance in full and read it by title only.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. I make a motion for the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 456-2019, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Weed amending Title 18 zoning of the municipal code.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay,
We're moving, baby.
we're moving. C, administration, council will consider second reading and adoption of ordinance number 457-2019, regulating short-term rentals.
The council directed staff to draft an ordinance that would require that a business license be obtained for short-term rentals to assure that we are collecting tourist occupancy tax, and it also has certain lease restrictions set forth. It's a beginning process which will allow us to monitor these activities within the city to determine whether additional regulations are necessary in the future. But any specific questions that you might have, Bob can answer. He prepared the ordinance at your request.
I do have a question, Ms. Mayor. Have the properties that are existing in that behavior, 8, I think, have they been identified? So we have a list of those that are,
I don't know.
I do know that. Our finance department regularly checks Airbnb and the other sites for these type of short-term rentals and contacts the property owners that are advertising. I believe that we have 4 at the present time, and a 5th one is being proposed. The 5th one is what caused us to come to you and suggest that the time had come to do a business license. The existing 4 will be required to obtain the business license, and any new ones that come into effect. It is a little bit time-consuming to have to go back to check on a periodic basis And one of the things that we have been talking about on the administration level is perhaps contacting the companies themselves, like Airbnb, and asking them to inform us if any new properties get listed.
I would agree with that. Also, is there any restrictions as to zoning? I don't see any here.
This doesn't change the zoning situation. You might look at 520030 A and B. It speaks to that issue. Hosted homestays are allowed within all zoning districts. Vacation rentals are allowed only with a use permit from the planning commission.
Did that answer your question?
It did, and I like that because it gives us the ability to restrict at any time. We're not being overrun by vacation rentals right now, but I mean, and maybe never.
Your microphone's not on.
We can't hear you.
Your typical review, as in any other use permit for compatibility and all, except we can really, unlike the situation with tonight, we can really address any and all factors that might be relevant.
Okay.
I would like to know if these places are getting inspected, such as the place in Tahoe where they did not have an alarm for carbon monoxide. And it's illegal, but if it's just your own personal house, nobody's going to come and inspect it. But if it is a business, it has to have one, and it has to have smoke alarms. And our fire chief probably wants to go do that.
Our process for issuing business licenses is that we do inspect.
Okay, so that will.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But we don't have anything for like an annual or?
Generally, we inspect on an annual basis.
Oh, because it is a yearly permit, right? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, second reading. Any other questions?
This is open for public comment.
Sure.
Sarah Montgomery, 5734 Antelope Court. I was here when you guys discussed this, I believe it was 2, possibly 3 meetings ago. I would again like to suggest that there is a cap put on it. As of right now, I recognize that it's a non-issue. However, when you look at Mount Shasta, McLeod, and now in Dunsmuir, there is a housing crisis. Weed is not exempt from a housing crisis. Affordability is an issue. We have jobs that do not pay for people to rent homes in this community as it stands. I hope, and I believe that it's the hope of the council, that people will want to come to the city of Weed and will want to stay here. But it shouldn't be at the cost of its citizens, meaning that we should be able to have people be profitable on their properties, and I agree with that. I don't believe that we have the housing, public housing available, rentals available to families that may not be able to buy a home outright right now. And I'm fearful of what we're seeing in Mount Shasta, again, Dunsmuir and McLeod, where people from the Bay with lots of money are coming up, buying up these properties and renting them for exuberant amounts. So by adopting any ordinance or policy on this, business or otherwise, I think that the bigger issue here should lie with our citizens and our families that have a hard time finding realistically priced rentals as it stands. And I do believe that there are cities that have done a really great job with their Airbnb and VRBOs in certain policies outlining extended stays, what that looks like, timeframes in which you need to have quiet time, whether or not they can bring in pets, what that looks like for insurances. So I do think it's a much larger issue, and I think leaving it very open and broad at this point and allowing it to be revisited leads way for things to happen in the interim. And I do wish to see something a little bit stronger put in place because, again, you can't find a house in McLeod to rent. You can't find places in Mount Shasta to rent. You have 1-bedroom apartments in Mount Shasta going for over $800. That is insane.